G'day and welcome to Scrounger's Workshop. Today I've got a couple of spirit levels to show you, but these are special ones. These are called machinist levels and they're super accurate. Before we start, I'd like to give a shout out to Keith Rucker. It was his video on these Starrett levels that showed me how to pull them apart, rebuild them, put them back together again. So thanks Keith, appreciate it. So you saw at the beginning the Starrett I picked up at a local auction, and this is it once it's all finished and ready to use. But this is the one I'm working on and what this video is about. This one I bought from eBay, and the seller did give a very good description of it. It has no markings whatsoever, and it's a bit of a conundrum because the casting is absolute rubbish, but the spirit level is great. Somebody's replaced the original bubble with a new one, and they've done a crap job at it. It's really bad, but that's what I'm here to try and fix. So let's get on with it and take it apart. Here's a quick look at the base, but I'm not going to touch that until I can sort out what's going on with the bubble. You can see here that it was once bright nickel plated and would have been very shiny indeed. And unlike the Starrett levels, this one the caps unscrew. On a Starrett they're just press fitted in. And I don't know what somebody's used to hold that vial in, but it looks like clay or mud. I'll have to get that out first. And another odd feature is the inside tube has got knurling on it. I don't understand why you'd need knurling on it when you turn the outside tube. Whatever this stuff is, it's very hard. It's set like concrete in there. I was having quite a struggle getting the crap out. So in the end I took it inside and dropped it in some very hot water to see if I could soften it. That seemed to do the trick, and that was the useless vial that was in it. And this stuff, I've suddenly realised, it's bloody wood filler. Good choice. So now I've got it all apart. You can see the old nickel plating on there. It's all gone a bit scummy, so I'm going to buff it all up and see if I can get that nickel plating off and just make it polished brass. The first thing I want to do though is make a bushing to take out the play between the inner and outer tubes. So I grabbed an old Coke bottle and I cut that up into strips. And here for you guys in America, this is what a metric ruler looks like. Millimeters on the top, half millimeters on the bottom. Look at that, like a finger in a bum, just perfect. Now time to address this vial. Here's a good news story. I couldn't get the 6-inch vials anywhere in Australia. So it's a 98.6 vial. So I wrote to Starrett in the US and asked them if they could freight them to Australia. I wanted 2, and could they freight them to Australia? That was on a Friday afternoon. Monday morning I get an email from Starrett in Australia with an invoice for $67. This was to cover the cost of the 2 Starrett vials, and these are the very accurate ground vials, including freight and tax. And so I paid the invoice and the 2 vials were at my place by Wednesday morning. How's that for service? So this bit of paper does 2 things. This is what they use in the Starrett levels, it makes it nice and bright behind the vial, makes it much easier to see, and it also makes the vial a very snug fit, which is exactly what you want. So I finally got the vial exactly where I want it, and remember, this isn't a Starrett vial, so it's a matter of ginning around for a while until you've got that vial right where you want it. I used some thin masking tape to hold it in place so it doesn't move. I didn't want to put tape over those red lines in case they lifted when I took the tape off. There you can see the vial stuck in there. It's time to fix it into place permanently. So how do you hold them in place? Well, again, I learnt from Keith Rucker that Starrett just used plaster of Paris, and it's a great idea. The plaster sets it in place and holds it still, but if you break the vial and you've used silicone or epoxy, how do you get the old stuff out to replace it? With this, you just drop it in hot water and the plaster of Paris dissolves. Brilliant. Thanks, Keith. Now, before I can fit the other end cap, I have to clean out this tube and get it ready to go on. It needs to be on there when I put the plaster in. So let's get into it with a wire brush and clean it out inside. This is what I do with my old boots. I cut them up and use them for protection in the vice jaws. And I'm doing this, and look at that, what a surprise. The whole thing's made of copper. So it's made of copper, then it's been brass plated, then it's been nickel plated. Doesn't sound like a cheap quality tool to me. Now that the wire brush has gone through it, I can see these patches of corrosion, and they're really hard, they're glass hard. So the only way I'm going to be able to tackle those is with a small hand file. And while it still leaves a stain or a mark in there, it smooths out all that stuff. So at least the inner tube won't get stuck on it. Oh, and just by the by, I finished polishing the tubes. Got all the nickel off them. Didn't they come up nice? So now that outer tube is finished, I can take the tape off the inner tube. The first lot of plaster will be holding that into place, but I hold it with my thumb as well. And I put that in the outer tube with the sleeves, fill it with plaster and put the end cap on. Then it's just a matter of cleaning up any overflow like I'm doing here. You're just using some water. That plaster that pushed through there onto the glass, that's not a problem, that simply wipes off. But what it means is the plaster's gone around the vial and is holding that in place. So that'll never move until someone pulls it apart again in years to come to replace it. So now the level's finished and I'm happy with it. Looks like I bought one. It's time to have a look at this base and fix it up. And boy, what a mess it is. Look at that. That groove along the bottom there is slightly offset from one end to the other. It runs diagonally. The casting's rough, as you can see, very uneven. Have a look here at the difference in the casting on the ends. What a shocking job. I'm wondering, and that's curved. I'm wondering if this was homemade. So the first thing to do is get it into the sandblaster so I can have another look. And here it is, and it's even worse. I'm going to need to be doing some filing and polishing on this to get it anywhere near right. I think the first thing I'll do is get on the surface grinder and get that top leveled out. That'll give me a datum to work from. So to save you from a death by boredom, here it is after several hours of cleaning up. Wire wheel finish, got as best I could on it, which Still isn't great, but it's a lot better than what I started with, a lot more even. So let's see how it comes out after powder coating. This is straight out of the oven. I've just let it cool, and we'll see how it looks now. I think that's a lot better. I just can't do anything about that groove in the bottom and the way it's slightly tapered to one side. Here I'm just checking the base, because when I started there was a slight rock in the base, but it seems I've managed to get that out. But that groove in the bottom, I just don't have the right end mill to get into that at the moment. So now it's back together again. I'll just show you how touchy these things are. Watch the vial on the left while I just nudge that screwdriver around and see how much it moves with such a little adjustment. So at the moment I'm calling this finished. I'm really happy with it. It came out much better than I was expecting, and it'll make a good partner for the Starrett. That way I can use two levels at once and get my levels in both directions. Here's another demonstration on how finely adjusted these Starrett vials are. This is one sheet of 80 grams per square metre of paper, just regular copy paper, and that copy paper is 100 microns thick, or 1/10 of a millimetre. For you American guys, that's 1/4 thou thickness. And look, it's moved 2 bars on the vial, and when I pull that sheet of paper back out, it goes back to 0. How accurate is that? So those bars are about 2 thou each. So that's it. I hope you enjoyed it and maybe even learnt something. If you've got any idea of what brand of beast that level is, please let me know. I'd like to hear from you. Right, we're out of here. Cheers.